Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Dune Talks. I have with me here lannister2005. He's a respected member of the community and a great Dune player. He made it to the quarterfinals of the Dune Imperium Winter Invitational, and he has played, I think, the most number of games of Dune Imperium Uprising in the world. So, welcome Lannister to this podcast.
Thank you. And just as a short intro to the tournament, she's actually beat me in 6 rounds alongside Sneaker and DS, so props to him for that.
Yeah, if you listen to the recent podcast by Hidden Assets, like DS was talking about Lannister as like the other player at our table. Um, the game only mattered for me. I needed to like win or at least not finish last that game. So like to me that was like relatively high stress, but to everyone else they were all like almost guaranteed in. So yeah, I think I played well, but especially against DS who had like two public spectacles. But we'll get
Yeah,
into that another time. So today we're gonna talk about Lannister's favorite leader. So when we first started out this game, like when we were rating leaders, I think most players rated this leader relatively low. The only player who was really playing him was like Paul Denon. Paul Denon was really playing this leader, and Lannister, when we finally got our hands on a digital version, started to play so many games of this leader. And this leader, of course, is Irulan. So Lannister, do you like to talk about Irulan and like why do you gravitate to her and what do you enjoy about her?
what I enjoy about Irulan is her consistency in deck building. So she allows you to cut cards out from your starting hand or in your hand so that it becomes more consistent. And also, she allows you to grab cards from the row that allows you to mold and shape what your future rounds look like. And last of all, she's really good at contract completion, which in turn is going to infuse you with a lot of resources at one specific point in time. And that's why I think she's great.
So how many games of Irulan do you think you have played?
Conservatively speaking, I think I have about 250 games or more.
250. Wow, that's an insane number. Okay, so let's just jump into our game right now, and then maybe you can show us like what you should do as Ireland, like maybe in like the mid game and like or early game, mid game, and late game, and like some things you hope to accomplish, and what is like a typical like point breakdown for Ireland. So let's jump right in. So Lannister, which position do you think Ireland is best played in?
Irulan is best played in position 4. Reason being is she has a lot of second decisions she can make that can impact how the entire board state works out. So, for example, let's just pull up my hand here. Okay. So, for example, in this situation, you have 2 daggers, and sometimes you want to commit into this combat, but other people are committing too. Well, the good thing is she can grab a card that's a 1 cost from the row, and that adds value to you.
Okay, so Princess Irulan's signet ring ability is Chronicler's Insight. So you may choose to acquire a card that costs 1 to your hand, or you can trash a card from your hand. If that card costs 1 or more persuasion, you can gain 2 spice. So in this case, Lannister is talking about pulling a card from the Imperium row that costs 1 persuasion and putting it into his hand.
So the purpose of this is to A, increase your fighting power in a particular round, and B, it also increases your buy power so that, assuming you go to Arakeen, you get a draw. This is now enough to get tada, Corrinth City, which previously was unattainable. The beauty of her is she alongside Gurney and I believe Muad'Dib are one of the only 3 people who can acquire an 8 cost card in turn 1 if you feel so chancy. So it's one of those high roll situations, but it's within the realm of possibility for them, as opposed to the other people who have to wait till round 2 onwards.
Yeah, wow. Now you talked about like being in fourth position, being the best because you can kind of react to other players in terms of like combat strength. Because this is 1 dagger, and like you can choose very clearly whether you want to trash and buy, or do you want to like keep your daggers. Like, are your daggers important? Like, so I think that in fourth position you have a lot of knowledge whether this is what you should do. Can I? Okay, so let's say if you had an ideal hand, what is your ideal hand with like Irulan?
The ideal hand to start off with,
Yep.
to me, this is the most ideal situation.
Yep. With the
So
most important being these two, I presume, like
yeah,
one faction access and signet ring.
exactly.
Okay.
So the in the ideal scenario, um, some people like to conserve their water, so they don't go hit desert tactics, and they rely on the third or fourth position to do it. So I will gladly go to desert tactics to take out a dagger, and the intention is not um, to claim over Fremen friendship. It's mainly to build deck consistency, and the hope is, ideally, on your second action, you can go to either Arakeen or accept contracts being the higher priority target. And your hope is you draw your other dagger and you get to cut that out too.
Yeah, you can draw anything, all right, except your diplomacy, and happy to
Yeah.
cut it.
So in this ideal scenario, you have four left to buy with. You're not looking for anything major, but you can, if there's nothing else to buy, to prepare the ways is fine. You need to at least buy one green card. If not, you need to do that the round afterwards for sure.
Okay. And if there's a leader that's very similar to this in X Immortality, what leader do you think it is?
I would say ECAS is a pretty consistent one, except I like her better than ECAS because ECAS can't cut cards the way that she cuts. The only difference is you kind of sacrifice one particular round, and the reason why I say this is the best starting hand for her is because she can chop out the daggers early, and from then on, your persuasion from turn round two onwards or higher as a result of this.
Yeah. So you kind of like get high persuasion by removing your low persuasion cards, and because of that, like you buy high powered cards in your deck, and you see them a lot more. Yeah, I think with ECAS as well. Like when I talked to Zazibu about it, like you just want to keep a low card count. You want to keep like 8 cards and have very powerful cards in your deck, and have very powerful late game. Is that similar for Irulan?
Yeah, absolutely. She she takes about two rounds to get her engine started, but after on round three onwards, you'll start to see a lot more firepower. The reason being is because in in Uprising, there's so many different ways to cycle your deck. Like back then, if you're stuck with Dune Desert Planet, you can't do anything with it. But here, you can draw cards, you can draw cards, you can draw cards, you can draw cards. There's so many places that you can draw cards that cycling to your premium cards is very feasible. So you're with a small deck with size 9, you can easily hit your same cards every single rotation if you're lucky or if you're managing your deck very well.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, so play Irulan in fourth position especially, but is there any position where you wouldn't play her?
Um, to be honest, I'm comfortable with her in any position, but I would say probably I would dislike playing her in second position, mainly because in second position you're giving too much power to the third player. What I mean by that is when you're doing a deck building process, there's certain responsibilities you're kind of looking to escape, and when you do that, it kind of like you're not blocking certain things, and the player three is the first person who hits their the tier three conflicts, and if you're empowering that person who's directly behind you, you're kind of setting the table up for trouble because
Hmm.
you should not be empowering the third player, in my
Okay,
opinion.
I had a different thought process about it. When you first said like player position two is like the position you want to play Erlang. Like my thought process is that like round 7 and round 8 is like your moment to shine, right? And I think
Yep.
that position two is like the worst position in those rounds. So I feel like it's your moment to shine, but position wise, it's not your moment to like fight. So at least when I think about it, maybe that is why. Do you think there's any merit to that?
I think there is merit to that. I think for Erelon anyway, she takes time to build up, but depending upon the power level of your cards, you can try for a turn 6 win or a turn 7 plus onwards. Whereas for me, like it's kind of more difficult to pull that off in a position 2 um, adjustment because I'm my consistency isn't quite there compared to the track chasing because my power is dependent upon the cards that I get, right? So yeah.
Hmm. So like the leader is very flexible, but you still require a lot of power from the cards that you buy.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Do you consider early revealing a lot as Irola?
I rarely do, simply because there's too much value in um, other actions. I'm one of the few people who very rarely early reveal, and this is one of the, I guess you could say, weaker parts of me. But I find that there's too much value in doing that second action, especially since I'm usually the guy who foregoes the third action. So, asking me to give up one action, which is half of my actions, is a little too much, especially since I'm rarely getting my third.
Only two actions? I think this is a good point to segue to our next topic, which is what are your early game objectives? So you mentioned one of your early game objectives is to call your deck down, but are there any other early objectives that you are hoping to get?
Early objectives are to get easily achievable contracts. So for most people, this is a high difficulty contract, but I would consider this very easy for Irulan. So, for example, four spice can be achieved by just going to Haga Basin once with the ring, and to cut a card that isn't a starter card, and that'll achieve it right there and then. So if you manage to stack these up with another three or four, that's seven or even up to 10 Solari you can get with three contracts of spice. And that is something very, very powerful, because if you get a sun injection of 10 Solari and four spice in one round, a lot of people are going to have difficulties fighting that round, if that is the target round to be used on.
Okay, so I think you're talking about some combos you can do because your signet ring gets you spice, right? And with the spice, you can very easily harvest 4+ spice with this contract and the other specific contracts in the contract deck. I think there are a few of them. Let me just pull them out.
Even the deliver supplies and all that, yeah. Or the
Okay,
espionage.
can I ask another question? So, what is this Solari for?
So the Solari for her, so she's the queen of the Emperor track, mainly because she gets that friendship bump that gives you the intrigue, and there are different methods that you can bump down, but the main source of the Solari is to hope to wheel into Mentat more often. So
Okay. So before we proceed, Iran's passive is Imperial Birthright. So when you reach 2 influence in the Emperor track, you can draw an intrigue card. So this incentivizes her to take up contracts to go to the Emperor track. And when you have 2 influence in an Emperor track, you actually are able to go to the space Imperial Privilege. Imperial Privilege requires 2 Emperor influence. You spend 3 Solari, you play a green card, you get to recall another agent, draw a card, as well as trash an intrigue card to draw a new intrigue card.
yep. So there are two different advantages to that. So the first advantage is when you go Mentat, you can increase your buy power for that round. So what do I mean by that? So let's say I go to Mentat with the ring, and the ring, I'll I'll still draw that card for that location, and I can pull a card from that row, thereby increasing my buy power. And if it's, say for example, the prepare the way here, and I had 2 persuasion in the Bene Gesserit, I can also do an additional draw. So this is one method to kind of wheel into a higher persuasion count for that round, and it also allows you to exchange a really crummy intrigue for hopefully a better one, and last of all, more importantly, the last call on the combat. So when you have all the information in combat, this is what makes you very difficult to deal with, because everyone's an open book, minus any intrigues, and you can adjust for intrigues with certain variables. But the overall take is, if you have all the open information, it makes combat so much easier for you.
Yeah, I think similar to Mentat previously, right? In fact, a bit more powerful in Uprising as well. Prepare the ways, right? If you look at it through a different lens, you can think about it. If you have a prepare the way and you're going to Imperial Privilege, it's almost like Ilban. And we all know how powerful Ilban is. You just play a dagger and you get draw 2 cards. And it's very likely that you have like one prepared away. Okay, that's interesting. That's what you do with Solari. But in terms of like other like short-term goals, When I think of short-term goals, I think of things like any of the friendships that you want to chase quickly, or any of like, or like Swordmaster, or do you want to get hooks, or High Council? Like, which of these goals would you think are important for Ireland?
So it depends on the shape in which you are going with. So let's just say the first two cards you acquire are Unswerving Loyalty and Sardaukar Infantry. Those are the two cards you've acquired. So that to me speaks that you're likely going to a more combative state. So Fremen friendship is uh, probably an integral part. Uh, Conversely, if I'm not acquiring these combat cards, let's say I get a Calculus of Power, which is a 3 buy power, and it's a spy active, and it has um, uh, the ability to cut cards, then I'm probably chasing tracks. So the card you buy shapes the journey in which you go on.
Yeah, so it's very dependent on the card you buy. So I can also like pull from that you don't value uh like rushing Swordmaster with this leader. Like that it's not easy to rush Swordmaster unless you have like very specific contracts. Am I correct?
Yep, that is correct.
So Swordmaster is more like something that you get slurry from like combat, and then like if like, maybe it's like one step away from um, Spice Refinery, or maybe like if you're somehow able to get shipping access, like and you that one step away, then you can get Swordmaster, and that's like how you stumble into that, or you have like contracts from like various contracts giving you salary that grant you Swordmaster, but you at the same point in time you're not forcing it. You're not like I need to get Swordmaster now. Is that how you're approaching it?
Yep, I would value a combat win or several bumps over um, the Swordmaster. Um, for me, I don't like to. If I get it, as you said, it sort of stumbles onto me, or it's one of those. Oh, it's really convenient. I guess I'll just do it. But I rarely give up important actions for a Swordmaster. Like for example, I'll likely grab hooks over Swordmaster if the sequencing is vital for me.
Yeah, I think this is actually very different from like Amani Cass. Amani Cass, like Swordmaster, is like the critical piece in him because Swordmaster kind of allows him to constantly trash cards. But if Irulan is not the case. If Irulan actually like I, I constantly hear the word like cards you buy is important, and maybe like having two actions and having first to buy later in the rounds actually is actually a very big thing. Like you plan your persuasion, you buy the best card with a small deck, you see it a lot quicker and you see it a lot more often, and maybe that is one of the powers of Ireland.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, she's also one of the people who are content to hit accept contracts a lot. Like if you like the spice contracts, which she does, then those are essentially what 4 contracts that you're always happy to see. Whereas other people like, can I achieve this? Can I not achieve this? I don't know. Like this might be like 4 turns later. It's like this is a contract where you know it's getting finished, and it's basically when you decide to finish it. Really, it's just not. It's just a matter of like when you want to achieve it.
Cool. Okay, so since we're talking about cards for Ireland, can you just pull out some of the cards that can you like just talk about some of the cards that you want to see with Ireland? Then maybe we can talk about play styles with regards to that. Let's talk about the one costers first, right?
Okay. So, with Unswerving Loyalty, your objective here is to wheel into this several times over the course of the rounds. And as Cheese has noted on his podcast a lot, troops are of a high demand. It's really difficult to make them. So when you have them, you have the ability to, with a Fremen bond on Unswerving Loyalty, put a troop. It creates a troop, and then it can put in a troop or take out a troop. So this can net you 2 troops because if you committed 2 troops and suddenly you're losing the fight, you get a troop spawned, and you can even reduce the amount of troops you committed into the fight. So this helps you increase your fighting capacity for future rounds, and it also works in conjunction. Sorry, forgot to grab Chani. Chani also works very well with Unswerving Loyalty. alongside it. So if you manage to get these two combos together, it can really work to your benefit. So what I mean by this is, in now Badger's become infamous. He's one of the best players around. I use this combination to kind of wheel into him. So what that means is I committed something like 8 troops into one fight, and in this instance, it was more just to make him overcommit, and then I pulled out 4 troops because I had 2 Unswerving Loyalties, 1 Chani, so that's 4 troops, and I also had uh, retreat 2 troops for contracts. So I pulled out 6 troops in total.
Okay, okay.
And, yeah.
So I'm going to talk about Unswerving Loyalty for a moment. So Unswerving Loyalty, if you compare it to, let's say, X Immortality, I think the card that actually looks very similar to, like, when you just look at it at a face value, it's like Sardaukar Infantry, right? You have 1 Persuasion, 2 Swords on reveal, no actions, right? I mean, when you look at it, it's similar, right? Can you say? But this card somehow in an uprising is so much better, right? The ability to deploy or not deploy the troop, or having just being able to store the troop, makes it so much better. Like, it's always relevant whenever you see it, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And also the retreat function is a huge function of it too. That retreat is even more massive than the extra deploy. I
Yeah,
feel.
I mean the retreat is almost like you can reveal for like 1 persuasion and gain 2 troops, right? Sometimes that's how this card can feel. Or it can like really push you over the edge and like really beat someone else in combat. This is a really good card, and like compared to like Sardaukar Infantry, I think like this is probably one of the best cards in the set.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it's such an unassuming 1 coster. Yeah, it's a really good card. And I think being able to pick it up your ring, I think is something that is really good.
Yep.
Do you actively play your ring to pick this up?
Yeah, absolutely. But the one thing you need to be cognizant of is, it's a great card, but it's also without symbology. When you cut cards and you acquire this type of card, you need to be cognizant of how many unplayable effects that you have. So, for example, if you pick up a hand like this, you could get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So you need to cut convincings if you acquire this, because you can end up with a dead draw if you have these 4 and Spy Network, for example.
Okay.
Which
So when you acquire like one of this, you must be conscious of it, and when you acquire 2 of it, you must actively cut like one of the dead cards, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Or else you get in trouble.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's move on to the next card, which is Sardaukar Soldier.
Yeah.
This card
So-
doesn't look great, right? I mean, it has like blue access, and then it reveals for 1 precision and 1 sword. Why would you pull this card out?
So 1 sword actually makes a big difference in Uprising, but even discounting that, there's a couple of reasons for it. In conjunction with Calculus of Power, as you can see, Calculus of Power upon reveal gets you 3 more swords if you cut an Emperor card. So if you cut the Emperor card here, that's 3 swords, and you get an Intrigue on top of it. So that's a total of 4 swords on reveal plus an Intrigue that you get, which is awesome. Anytime you get an Intrigue, as Cheese and Sneaker discussed, it's a huge potential power boost, and that is an extra resource that you can use on hand, on top of completing contracts, as we denoted earlier. So it's a lot of bonus advantage there.
So it's like good trash fodder, but it's not something you hate to have in your deck as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's the option to always trash it because you have Signet Ring, and when you have other enablers to trash as well, like this card becomes a lot better. Is this card something you actively pay your ring to pull?
Not precisely. I rarely pull it unless it's used for combat. I would say I only sometimes do it. I usually use leftover buy power to acquire it into hand, acquired into discard, but yeah. This one less so than next one.
Yeah, I think the 1 costers are things that remain in Imperium row, so they almost remain like resources that Irulan can pull at any time of the game. Let's say if you have like a hand like calculus and signet ring. Maybe in the tier 3 combat, you can always play your signet ring, pull Sardaukar into your hand, and that is 4 additional swords and an intrigue just by playing your signet ring to grab this
Yep.
card. Yeah, and yeah, 1 additional persuasion as well. It's really good. Okay, so Sardaukar Soldier is one of I think it's like almost like a Swiss Army knife that you can pull at a late point in the game. When you see it, you should be happy. I think
Yep.
that you want to talk about calculus while we're at it.
Yeah. So Calculus of Power is one of those cards that is super flexible. It allows you spy access to any location that you've set up. It also allows you to cut cards very well as well. So um, it provides swords when you need it, when you have Emperor cards as well. It generally is a very feel good card because even if you don't use it, you reveal it. It's 2 persuasion. It's like, as you say, a Swiss Army knife. I would say
Yeah.
it's got swords, it's got power, it got cut.
So with it, like, I think with like trashing leaders, what we learn is that trashing even more cards is very good. So this is like one of the cards that allows you to trash. Um, how highly would you prioritize going to espionage to place a spy on a good spot for the spy access for calculus?
Um, not very frequently. I initially use it for its card cutting capabilities or its reveal function for a high buy power. So
Okay.
I rarely use it for spy location and faction stuff.
Okay, cool. Okay, we'll just park this aside for now. I think by how you're pulling out the cards, you're going to talk about space-time folding next.
Yep. So space time folding is one of the few cards that allow you to um, cheat. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a really bad starting hand. Space time folding can be used. So, for example, if you have a bad starting hand, let's just say that you can go to accept contracts, pull this, and if you're lucky enough, you can go here, deliver supplies, chuck out a dagger, and draw a new card. That's obviously reaching for the stars, but at least it's a prayer that you can hit something.
Okay,
And I,
that sounds a bit niche.
yeah, even if not that, you use this. You can use this to do the wheeling effects, as I call it. It's just wheeling, as in like you just keep rotating between them. So what I like to do is I like to use this card in conjunction with, say, this card, and you'll have spice. And presumably, if you've been collecting your Solari stuff, you can go Mentat, and the Mentat you use for something like this.
Okay, we'll get it. So
Yeah.
space time foldings has some clear synergies with like some of the other spacing cards, right? That especially like spacing guild's favor when you discard it, or when you discard any spacing card, you can draw 2. And this one, when you discard, you get 2 spice as well. So a lot of combo potential when you pick up this card. Is space time folding something that you want to prioritize with your ring?
Yes, absolutely, because everybody goes after space-time folding, so you know it's not going to be there for you.
Yeah. So space time folding is one of the cards I think everyone kind of is happy to have because it's never bad. It's like a card neutral, right? Because it's not really card neutral. Like it is, you get to have one cycle effect, right? And the cycle effect is generally good. It has good access because of how important Highliner is throughout the game, right? And having a spacing card is very likely as well because what cards are spacing cards? Spice must
Spice
flow.
must flow.
Spice must flows are spacing cards.
And to your point, even if you don't highline, like early water is very important, right? Cheese, so like deliver
Yeah.
supplies is not a bad spot either.
Yeah, and even if you're blocked there, I don't think you're too sad. Like the commitment wise is so low to this card. It's not like you invested a lot to it, and most it just reveals one persuasion, which is not great, but I mean it's not end of the world. Okay, so you can look at picking up space time folding sometime in the game as well. So we covered the cheap cards, and let's talk about some of the other cards that you pulled out. I think some of the cards that I think you say can are powerful and do help to define Irulan's game. You say Irulan's game is defined a lot by the cards that she buys, and I think that they are mainly by the more expensive cards, right?
Yep, precisely.
Okay, which one do you want to talk about first?
So they all kind of work in conjunction with one another. I say we start with Spacing Guild Favor. So Spacing Guild Favor, you'll predominantly use to get cards that allow you to discard it. So, for example, captured mentat or space-time folding
Okay.
to discard this. So the whole idea is to get that 2 spice. The idea is not to use this on its reveal or to play. If you play or reveal, it's fine, but the main purpose is to get the spice, because that anything that you can get for free, you should take, right?
So you value two spice so highly that you can think about this five persuasion card and just be a discard fodder for two spice. Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because with that 2 extra spice, I can do a lot of magic with it.
So it's quite interesting. I think like two extra spice. Like, I think if you talk about in terms of like immortality, like no one really cares about two extra spice. Like there's this combat where in immortality where you can get like three spice, one intrigue, two spice, and one spice for the whole combat, and no one really cares about it. But how? But why is it in Uprising two spice is so much more vital?
Well, as you can see, for example, this combat, secondary rewards only give you 1 spice, right?
Okay.
And as you see fit, like Haga is constantly being taken, and 3 water is definitely out of reach for you most of the game. So that leaves only Imperial Basin for your spice needs for the majority of the game, because everyone's taking turns at Haga, and only one person can hit Imperial Basin. So that's why spice is such a premium. So when you tell me there's something worth double the secondary rewards here, hell yeah, I'll take it.
Okay, so spice is important, guys. There are not many ways on board to get spice, because of how sandworms play out and how like everyone needs spice for highliner, and getting two spice actually is very very big. It gets you a lot closer to highliner than people think, and then being it on a card that you like kind of discard or like just kind of is really very powerful. Okay, so discard for the so when you pick up Spacing Guild Favor, look to prioritize cards that allow you to discard. So cards like Captured Mentat and Space-Time Folding. The other
And guild,
cards probably are like Guild Spy
yep, and guild
and Guild
Envoy.
Envoy. Both allow you to discard, and when you discard a Spacing Guild card, you get a benefit as well. For Guild Spy, you get an intrigue, and for Guild Envoy, you get two cards. Okay, so would you pick up Spacing Guild's Favor, then hunt for those cards, or would you like pick up these, or when you pick up like a discard outlet, then you very actively hunt for those Spacing Guild's Favor?
I usually so this one I would acquire the hand.
Yeah,
This one I would acquire first, and then I'll acquire that.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's kind of like a secondary card that you kind of want. It's like a combo piece that you're actively looking for after you have some of the enablers.
yeah, precisely. Because this one is very general purpose. It's very good, but this one is like the key to a lot of Irulan
Okay,
shenanigans.
then let's talk about Captured Mentat.
So, captured mentat allows you 2 different possibilities. The possibility of milking her Emperor track bonus. So, when you reveal its effect, it can go down a track and go up a track. So, if you're already at the friendship of the Emperor, you can simply go down up and get a free intrigue, and that's a huge bonus there too.
Okay, so
Now,
to describe to everyone what Lannister is talking about, Irulan's passive is Imperial Birthright. Whenever you reach two influence with the Emperor, you can draw an intrigue. And when they say reach, you mean like when you go from one to two or zero. Yeah, whenever you go from one to two, you get an intrigue with the Emperor, and this is not limited to one time a game. So anytime you can reach from one to two, you do get it. And there are not many ways to go down on faction tracks. And one of the ways is Capture Mentat. Capture Mentat on reveal, you get one persuasion, as well as you can go down in one faction to go up in one faction, and you can go down and up in the same track. This enables you to on reveal get one persuasion and one intrigue.
now the other thing you can do is the on-play effect, which I also like a lot. So, if you use um, Imperial Privilege, which is formerly known as Mentat,
Yeah.
you can discard a card. So presumably you discard this card, you get 2 spice, and then you draw a new card, and then you drew another card from Imperial Privilege, and you get an intrigue. Assuming you started the hand with 1 intrigue in hand, you would get another intrigue for the discard effect, and you get to be very um, opportunistic with what you do. So, for example, if this is not useful for you, you can use this location to discard that and get a new one. So, you basically saw 3 intrigues when you only had one to begin with, and you get to keep two. So it's very flexible in that sense. And I ran an experiment with a couple of of the other members, and we did an experiment where we did 5 intrigues, and we did it in 50 iterations. And if you only got to keep 2 of those 5, it turned out to be about 2 points on average, even though you only got to keep 2 of 5. And we ran that experiment, and that's why this to me is such an important key component, because when you do this, it really adds a lot of value. It disintegrates a lot of the the randomness of it, because you wheel into more opportunities and you give yourself more chances to get key components that you need.
Okay, okay. So Captain Mentat is a very good card on Irulan, but Lannister, I'm still not sure. Like, should I be revealing this card or should I be playing this card?
You can do either. So if you want to save your actions or your Solari, you can choose to use its passive ability upon reveal to get that intrigue. Or if you have a lot of excess resources from what we described earlier in terms of the abundance of contracts completed, this is when she becomes really deadly. She can cycle between intrigues and get a lot of powerful intrigues in hand at key moments. And at the same time, she can get you resources by playing that. And it buys you more time to see the board state at its final. So you get the last say, you get more consistency, and you also get more powerful intrigues to use on the combat or for bumps if you need to.
Cool, cool. So I have one more question with regards to this card. So let's say for non-Irulan, right, how powerful is Captain Mentat? Let's say if you had to grade
Oh,
it, give it a grade.
I would say it's easily S,
For
because
non-Irulan players?
even non-airline players like
Then for
Mark,
Irulan, what is Captain Mentat for Irulan?
it's S plus. So
It's
I
really
won't say
strong?
this is better. I won't say this is better than Guild Spy. I won't say it's better than Overthrow, but this on her is like it's a key component for me on winning several games. It's a key component for several other players too, mainly because, as you said, going down on a track and up on another track is very rare and high quality. So you can afford to fight somebody and lose that fight and still come down, or you can beat somebody who overcomes you. So its reveal effect is actually very powerful and very worthy of the S class, in my opinion, because there's little to no cards that can go down or up, and that can help you win a fight or make you readjust your overcommitment on a particular fight as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's move on. Which card do you want to talk about next?
So for me, my heart is set on Corrinth City.
Okay.
I love it to death. It's something that I use every time with Space and Guild's favor.
Okay, so
And
Corrinth City is a 6 costed card. It has an Emperor tag, it has Emperor and Green access, and the on play effect, right? You get to discard 2 cards, pay 5 Solari for a victory point. Or you can reveal it for 5 Solari, or you can pay 5 Solari and take a seat on the High Council if you haven't already.
in this instance, in the ideal scenario, if you're able to be so lucky, you can get 2 Space and Guild favor. But if it's just 1, it's still good. So if you had 5 Solari, you go here, you toss this card, you get 2 spice. Your second action, you can go presumably to shipping and get your Solari again, and you can just keep cycling between those 2 functions, and it'll get you your bump that you need. It'll get you a point that's hard to get, as Cheesable notes in some of his videos. The hard-earned point is often more difficult than like the easy points. Like friendships are easy points. Um, those are much harder to acquire. So you have to find a way to get those hard to earn points like combat victories. And if there's a cheat code, this is one of those cheat codes. That and Smuggler's Haven. So anything to bypass the extra combat you need to do or anything like that is superb, I would say.
Okay, you keep talking about it in terms of like having Space and Guild's favor, but how good is Corrinth City without like, Space and Guild's favor?
It's still very feasible. If you don't have Space and Guild's favor, you can still use other means of getting it, because this ring allows you to get 2 spice for killing a card. So it's not as efficient, but it's still feasible because you're able to cull cards and still get those points, and it meets your conditions for getting to the friendship or getting access to get the intrigue, and that's You always have a reason to go there. Like, so for example, if I go here and I acquire this contract, I can finish that contract by going here, and then I'm good to go again, right? So most people who go here, they don't feel good about it. They're like, oh man, what contract should I grab? This is all garbage. But a lot of
Okay.
the contract.
So Corrinth City. So when you do this, you're not looking to find many combats, I presume. You're just looking to get points and win the game.
Yep, yep, precisely.
Okay, cool. Then let's talk about, let's say, Smuggler's Haven.
So Smuggler's Haven is again one of those things you abuse with the ring or with Spacing Guild favor. So with the ring, it can get you 2 spice on certain locations, and with your other excess action, you can go and complete that 4 spice objective.
Yeah.
Um,
So Smuggler's
yeah,
Haven is a Spacing Guilds card that allows you to go to spacing as well as the spice trade spots, yellow access. You can spend on play. You can spend 4 spice to get a victory point, and on reveal you get 1 persuasion. And if you are spying on a maker space, you can get 2 spice. So let's talk about the side that we are not looking at first is the reveal side. Are you ever thinking of putting a spy on a maker space with this card?
yes, absolutely. So there's 2 reasons for that. The first reason is um, some people are trying to block you from actively completing your contracts on Haga, because Haga is the easiest place for you to complete your high spice objectives.
Hmm.
So you can do that. It also gives you access to worms, and if you're not doing worm combat, this gives you 2 spice. And upon reveal, if you have a spy on any desert locations, so it's definitely very good for that purpose. You should not try to abuse this too much. I think 1 to 2 per game is more than enough. I know some people who try to make it like 3, 4 times. It's just too excessive. Like you need some resources for things outside of Smuggler's Haven, but this will push you over the hump. 1 to 2 is sufficient, I would say.
Okay, so when you're doing this, try to get a spy on a makerspace, because Irulan kind of generates you spice, and you can try to cash it in more than other leaders. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, and the last card you pulled out is Interstellar Trade.
So Interstellar Trade is one of those abusive cards. For me, it's all about hitting the Mentat or going shipping. So when you go to the Mentat, which is Imperial privilege now, you can use this to get your excess bump. So if you are so fortunate to have 3 actions, then you can have up to 4 bumps in one round because of this card. So, assuming 3 different diplomacies and Interstellar Trader, that's 4. And this also allows you to do a double bump, sort of like Shaddam. So you can kind of contest Shaddam on that end. And because you are such a great contract completer, a lot of the times when you don't need the bumps anymore, I have 3 or 4 plus contracts completed. Upon reveal, it becomes a 5. It's in high place. It's 5 persuasion for reveal because I have 5 contracts completed, for example.
Yeah.
So
So you
if
think
you
this is so this card is, I mean, good for on all leaders, but you think this card is better on Irulan because she naturally completes a lot of contracts and like her reveal has like a lot of upside to it.
yeah, precisely,
Okay.
precisely.
So I hear you talk about all these great cards, but at the same point in time, I don't hear you talk about combat other than the first card that you pulled out, which is Unswerving Loyalty. There's like 1 persuasion card. Um, do you does Ireland like gravitate towards combat at all?
There are certain circumstances. So for me, the integral piece is if I've acquired this card first. Um,
So,
if not, then it depends. If I get a hold of, say, Shishakli, Shishkali, Shishkali is another one of those cards where it helps you cut and refine your deck a lot. So um, if you end up the first 2 rounds giving up your faction spots and you just chop cards with Shishkali and your ring, or diplomacy to deep desert or desert tactics, I mean, then you basically make your deck and you mold your deck into a combat deck, revolving around Fremen. So I think she can do a better Fremen deck than Jessica, for example, just because she can minimize her deck very well. So if you're going combat, the focus is generally speaking Unswerving Loyalty. Otherwise, it might take a little too long.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you can consider going for a Fremen deck. Is that what I'm hearing as well?
yeah, for sure.
And if you go a Fremen deck, then you be very active in combats.
Yeah, extremely active, like once every round to once every other round type of activity.
Cool, cool. So we have listed out a bunch of game plans depending on the cards that you acquire. You can acquire cards that acquire you points, right? Like Corrinth City and Smuggler's Haven, and then you can acquire like high power cards like Interstellar Trade or Overthrow and like have them just win you the game. But cards that allow you to discard in conjunction with Space and Guild's Favor are very strong, as well as you can always build the Fremen deck to kind of like win you the game. And all these are quite varied path to victories. At what point of the game do you think you are like clear on like what path you're going? Like, is it like by the first card that you buy, or is it like by like round two or round three that you kind of know like, hey, this is my game plan for this game?
Usually, I'll know before the end of the round which direction I'm going,
Which
and
round? Round one?
round one. Yeah,
Okay,
usually.
so round one, you know whether what type of deck you're playing ready because you have trashed quite a fair bit and you have acquired a card to your hand.
Oh, sorry, I also forgot this card is also of high importance to her because she is really high into the Emperor track. So yeah, this is another one of those combat cards. Like if I pick this up turn one, I know I'm going heavy combat.
Sardaukar Coordination,
Yep.
because why is it the on play effect or the reveal effect?
So both are very good. Usually you would use the play effect rather than the reveal effect because the reveal effect is generally very minimalistic. It's not more than two swords, so
Okay.
um, I usually use it to even go to gather support, for example. I mean, a lot of people don't utilize gather support, but this makes gather support a highly tenable spot. Gives you two troops into combat directly, which might not seem like much, but that's as much as a research station gives you, right?
Ah. So Sardaukar Coordination, you may deploy any troops you recruit this turn into conflict. Okay, so with gather support, you can spend 0 Solari and get 2 troops, or spend 2 Solari and get 2 troops and a water, and you put them into combat with Sardaukar Coordination. And I mean, the obvious place is to go to Sardaukar itself, and then you can put in 4 troops and get an intrigue.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, okay. And does that push you more to a combat route?
Yeah, it for sure does. Sardaukar coordination pushes me into more combative state. I'm almost guaranteed to go combat if I have Sardaukar coordination.
Okay. Do you find yourself going Sardaukar a lot because you have more spies?
Yes, I think if I, on average, go to Sardaukar once per game for most leaders, I would say hers would be 2 to 3 times per game, just because of the excess amount. And it's, in my view, it's the best secondary option because this will constantly have a spy on it on turn 4 or 5 or as you know early as 4 or 5 or 6. So you're not going to get a piece of that. So having this as an option is definitely really good because 4 troops versus 5 troops, not much of a difference, especially when you have an intrigue to back it up, and you have you know viable access to it. So it's great.
Hmm. Cool. Thanks, Lannister. Okay, I think I've wrecked your brain for all the information that I want. I think that feel confident to play Irulan now. Is there any other tips you wanna leave for the people listening with regards to Irulan?
Don't be afraid to give up early combats to build your deck, and also get the contracts and condense them all and acquire them all in one shot, and you can do a lot of work. And what that basically means is having tons of resources all at once makes it very difficult for your opponents to deal with all at once. So try that out. You'll see exactly what I mean.
So thank you, Lannister, for being on this episode of Dune Talks. I hope that anyone listening I hope that it was enjoyable to you, and I hope that you learned a lot from this. Do try to play Irulan. It's a very fun leader. I think when I play it too, you because you get to see a lot of powerful cards. It's really fun,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I think getting 2 extra spies late in the game is so big in Uprising. And so, if you do like this video, do like, comment, and subscribe, and do leave some questions. Especially for Lannister, and I'll bring them to him. Any parting words, Lannister?
No, just wanted to say thank you, and I really hope that you talk about your turn 6 win for the tourney sometime. I really look forward to it. I thought you played the most immaculate game. Please talk about it. It's a great game. Not even kidding.
Cool. I'll maybe I'll pull you in for that talk. So thanks everyone, and see you around. Bye.
All right, bye.